story is The Three-Legged Cat. The Three-Legged Cat. There once was an old tabby cat called Tom, who loved to prowl around the world. He longed to see hills and valleys and wild, mysterious woods as well. He longed to see the sea. But Tom was a three-legged cat. Prowling was difficult with only 3 legs. What he was good at was curling up neatly, wrapping his tabby tail around himself and going to sleep. As he slept, he thought and dreamt of the wide world, and his 3 paws twitched. Tom lived with short-sighted Miss Gibble of number 7 Cardamom Street. She was a most respectable widow. She liked cats, but she liked them when they curled up and slept. It bothered her to see Tom coming running, all dot and go, carry one whenever she opened the fridge. "You'll eat me out of house and home," she said. She wanted a cat who would stay put and eat nothing. She certainly didn't want a prowler. "One prowler in the family is quite enough," said Miss Gibble, for she had a rascally, roving swagman brother called Cyril. All year he prowled up hill and down, and around and in and out edges of the world, wearing his revolting, molting Russian hat to keep his bald head warm. Once a year he would look in at number 7 Carmyle Street for a cup of tea and a bit of a chinwag. Oh dear, Mrs. Gibble knew the neighbours would be watching as that revolting, molting Russian cat came up the street and turned at her gate. "Yes," she grumbled to Tom, "one prowler is more than enough." Tom wrapped himself around with his own tabby tail. He dreamed of prowling beside the sea. In his dream the sea was pink and fizzy. He dreamed of the forests and fields of sheep. In his dream the forests were no higher than hedges, and the sheep ran about like woolly hedgehogs. "Thank goodness Tom isn't one of those prowling cats," thought Mrs. Gibble. "I'm glad he only has 3 legs." Then she heard a familiar step on the path. Horror Kapotchkin! A molting, revolting Russian hat was coming up the path to her door. It was Cyril the swagman. What would the neighbours say? Knock, knock went the door. "Hello, Daisy, how about a cup of tea and a bit of a chinwag?" cried Cyril. "Oh, Cyril, it's lovely to see you, but why don't you curl up and settle down?" Miss Gibble said, as she poured a cup of tea for her brother. She wept into the teapot. "Don't cry into my tea, Daisy. I take sugar, not salt," said Cyril. "But perhaps you're right. I love prowling the world, but my hat has molted badly. Somehow it doesn't keep my head as warm as it used to. It's not much fun prowling about with a bald head when it's cold. Perhaps I should settle down. One more around the world, and then I'll think about it." Miss Gibble looked anxiously out of the window. Her neighbours didn't prowl, but they did pry. Suppose they see there's swagging sitting in there, having a cup of tea and a bit of chinwag, she thought. Hastily she drew the curtains. As Cyril poured tea into a saucer so that it would cool quickly, Miss Gibble told him all about a new furniture polish she discovered in a sale and Cyril told her how to prowl successfully during earthquakes. But Miss Gibble hated the idea of earthquakes, and Cyril had no furniture, so was not in the least bit interested in furniture polish. "Well, I better be on my way," Cyril said at last. He picked up his hat, but it wasn't his hat. He put on his hat, but it wasn't his hat. On into the street he strolled, wearing Tom the three-legged cat, curled around his bald head, sound asleep. "Goodbye, old girl," he called out to Mrs. Gibble. "I'll be back this time next year for a cup of tea and a bit of a chin wag." And off went Cyril the swagman. With him went Tom and the three-legged cat. "My hat is deliciously warm," Cyril thought, as he marched down the road. "My bald head feels so cosy. I could prowl all around the world wearing a hat as warm as this." Tom the cat woke to find he was wrapped snugly around a bald head and riding down the road. There, right in front of him, was the beginning of the country. He saw hedges, he saw hogs, he even saw hedgehogs and fields full of sheep. The world stretched all the way to the edge of the sky. "I'm seeing the world at last," Tom thought in amazement. He wrapped his tabby tail more firmly around Cyril's ears. "The wide world is so much wider than I thought it was. His hat is so much warmer than I thought it was," muttered Cyril, the swagman, walking up and over the hill. Then Tom the cat saw the sea for the first time. It was not pink, it was green, it was not fizzy. It rolled backwards and forwards all the way around the world. The sea, thought Tom the cat. "I am seeing the sea." He began to purr. "My hat is purring," thought Cyril the swagman. "It's never purred before." A tabby tail twitched in front of his eyes. "Horror Kapochkin, I've carried off Daisy's three-legged cat," cried Cyril the swagman. "It's just as well I have enough sausages for two of us." Meanwhile, back at number 7 Carmyle Street, Miss Gibble was sitting by the fire stroking the hat. It sat very still, and when she opened the fridge the cat did not stir. It just sat there moulting silently. "My cat is suddenly cheap of feed," thought Miss Gibble. The hat did not show the least bit of interest, even when she ate fish for dinner. And out in the wide world, Cyril and Tom were sharing the sausages. "I won't settle down after all," said Cyril the swagman, stroking Tom. "You can curl around my bald head and keep it cosy, while I do the prowling for both of us. I've never had a better hat than a furry, friendly, three-legged cat." "And I've never had a better cat," said Miss Gibble, stroking the Russian hat tenderly. It's true that it moults, but we all have our faults, and it's cheap to keep and always asleep." The wide world beckoned, Tom purred. The hat just sat on Miss Gibble's lap, and everyone lived happily ever after.